Hi, I'm Amy Irvine. I'm the CEO and founder of Rooted Planning Group. We're a fee-only financial planning firm located in Corning, New York, with our primary headquarters and satellite offices in Hornell, New York, Valent, Oklahoma, and Parrish, Florida. We're thrilled to be talking to you today about something that often is a competing goal with a lot of other goals that many parents are trying to achieve, and that is college education. We're going to walk you through at a very high level our process in determining what you will receive, the expected family contribution, any scholarships that might be available at the colleges that your children are potentially interested in, and some checklists that we use when we're defining what it is that we need to be planning for. So let's dig right in. One of the first things that we do when we are talking to parents about education planning is we whip out our checklist that has a bunch of different questions that gives us an idea of how you personally feel about funding your children's education. This is not about the dollars at this point in time. This is very specifically about the emotion, which is often left out of the money conversation, but drives the final decision in many cases. So we want to know things about your attitudes towards providing college assistance to your children. Some people want to provide 100%, other people want to provide 50%, 25%, 75%, and some are of the mindset that I paid for my own college and my kids need to do the same thing. We also want to establish very specific goals for funding the education. We will provide this checklist to you if you actually send us an email. We will provide the entire checklist to you to get your brain thinking if this is something that you want to do on the college planning. Now, many people will ask us, how soon should I start doing college planning? Well, of course, we're going to say as soon as you start to think about having children, you should start to think about college planning. Whether or not you fund it is a whole different question. But we particularly want to start talking to parents in the 8th and 9th grade because there are a lot of things that we can focus on during that period of time that will actually help guide you through one of the most costly expenses you will have. Now, I don't mean costly in a negative way. I just mean it is very expensive to go to college, often more than your first home will ever be, sometimes more than your last home will ever be. So we want to make sure that we walk you through all of the different options, and we want to fully understand exactly what it is that you are going through mentally. When we know exactly what kind of emotion is behind college planning, then we can dig into things like what kinds of savings do you already have in place? Do you own a 529, a Coverdell, an Atma? And in some cases, people don't know what they own, and so walking through that. Do you have a Roth IRA? Do you have any other concerns or questions about savings vehicles? Do you have an existing student loan? Meaning, are you still paying off student loans, and do we need to be thinking about that? And then also, do you think that your current plans to meet the required college costs are in place? Do you think that you'll meet them? And are you receiving any tax deductions? So there's a whole list, like I said, of different questions that we walk through with that. That's our first step in the entire process. Then we move on over into the education strategies discussion. And this is where we use another checklist where we dig through many of the strategies that you would have available to you. For example, we would be looking at the expectations in the junior high school year. We would look at exploring the FAFSA options. We would establish potentially a 529 account. So we actually go down through this checklist with you. It's about a page and a half, and then provide you with a to-do list as a follow-up to that. And then finally, and this is where we really get into the meat and potatoes, finally we dig into utilizing software that we have at our practice through an organization that is very focused on college planning, and that's College Aid Pro. So through College Aid Pro, we would actually work with you to come up with some ideas on what the expected family contribution is. We would walk you through what it is in the first, second, third, and fourth year, the different colleges that they would be interested in. So we're just going to do a really quick demo of the system. I do mean super, super quick. I've already started the process with clients, parent A or parent 1 and parent 2, mom and dad, their dates of birth. Are they married filing jointly with taxes? What kind of tax return do they file? What's their household size? And what state do they live in? Once we have that basic information, then we dig into their parental income, their earnings, what's their AGI off their tax return, how much income tax have they paid. Then we look at untaxed income. Untaxed income is things like your health savings account, if you've saved pre-tax contributions, not the actual account, just the contributions that you've made over the last year within the tax year that we're looking at. Also, if you have any IRA deductions, child support, any tax exempt interest, because that's not included on your tax return, right? Because it's tax exempt. Any untaxed IRA distributions, untaxed pensions, any living allowance, that's more for the military. Any veteran non-education benefits, we'd want to throw that in there. And then any other thing that really wasn't listed there, we really need to know what that is so that we can take that into consideration. And we also need to know if you were getting any additional financial education credits, child support, needs-based employment income, any kind of taxable college age, co-op earnings, or combat pay. So those are things that we'll walk through with you. The next thing we do is walk through all of your cash and savings account. Let's say we have $10,000, and then the net worth of investments. Now, what's really important here is net worth of investments does not include your retirement accounts. This is net worth of investments that are outside your retirement assets. So brokerage account, that sort of thing. So let's just say we have $2,500 here. What's the home equity? So if you have home equity, meaning the difference between what you owe on your house and what the value of your house is, we throw that in there. Let's say $15,000. And then if you have any other real estate, we would throw that. If you have a business or investment farm, we also need to throw that into there. And if you do have a business, is it over 100 employees? It really does depend for financial aid purposes. And then any non-qualified annuities, this is where we would put our 401k balances. So like in this example, we'll put 150. If we have an IRA, we would put here. And then if we have a Roth IRA, we would put that here. So that's for mom. Now, if mom and dad share in some of these things, obviously, we really don't want to list it twice. So if dad has a separate account and his is also $10,000 and he has also a separate account worth of investments, we would throw that there. We've already accounted, unless you're splitting the home equity 50-50, we've already accounted for the home equity. No other real estate, no small business, and we'll assume the rest of these are somewhat equivalent to mom, just for purposes of this example. Okay, so we have all of that information in there at this point in time. Then we have student. And in our case, we said that there was a household of 4, so we're having student 1. So we'll say Bob, and we'll say the GPA for Bob is 3.9. Maybe Bob hasn't sat for SAT scores yet, or maybe he has, let's say 1100, didn't do the ACT, and let's say Bob, 1 or more scholarship changes have been made. Isn't that nice? That's probably because of the 3.9. So let's say that Bob is going to graduate in 2022, so a couple more years out, and we'll go with my alma mater of Hornell High School just for the fun of it. And Bob is going to major in, we'll just say, business management. Then there's Mary, so Bob and Mary, so sibling number 2. Sibling number 2 is a bit younger, so we're going to say sibling number 2 graduates in 2024. Sibling number 2 also is with Hornell High School. And assets for the sibling or for Bob, if you look at this, you'll notice it asks for assets. Well, what are the assets that sibling number 2 has? Let's just say $1,500, and there's no private or K through 12 tuition. Okay, so we're going to go to next here. Then we want to look at student income. So did the student have any income? Maybe they had a part-time job. Maybe it was only $1,500. That was the AGI, their total earnings. Well, we'll just say that's $1,500. And income tax paid might have been $150. No retirement payments, no child support. Let's assume none of these situations happen. And then what does that student have in their checking or savings account? So let's assume that that student has maybe $100, right? And no investments and no net worth in business or anything like that. We then need to know, do you have any 529 savings as of today? Is there any savings? So let's assume that you did put some money away. There's $20,000 and you're making contributions of about $100. $100 a month, and so that would be times 12. So you're about $1,200 a year. So at the start of college, you'll have around $2,100. And let's assume that you've said, we're going to give $15,000 towards the entire cost of this. So in order to do that, let's also assume that you're going to give $200 a month for miscellaneous out of cash flow to your student. You will qualify for the American Opportunity Tax Credit at some point in time, most likely. And let's assume that the student has agreed to pledge the $1,500 that's in their account, and they're also going to cash flow it at $100 a month. And grandma and grandpa unfortunately can't help. So, and then if you wanted to, you can say, I want to use the student federal direct loan. So we'll throw that in there. Notice how that changes. Nothing here yet, but it does say that you are willing to assume that $27,000 is something that you're qualified for. So what we want to look at it from that perspective is that the 4-year college pre-approval is $62,100, and the first year of college pre-approval is about $15,525. Now, what does that mean? That means that we should be looking for a college that falls along those guidelines when we're looking for colleges, or we should be looking for scholarships that supplement that over the course of the student's education. So that might mean a state school, or it might mean, really seeking those grants out. But this is what we mean by, when we talk to people about, you have to pre-qualify for a mortgage when you go get that. But often we don't think about college as a way of pre-approval or pre-buying either. So what we're saying in this situation is that we would recommend, based on all the facts that you've provided, that we look for a college that has a 4-year total cost out of pocket of around $62,000 and has a first year cost of around $15,525. If we thought there was going to be more scholarships, that could certainly be more. So then what are the schools that you're even interested in? So I'm going to pick SUNY Alfred. That's that's an alma mater that most of you know that I attended. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the state school. And then I'm also going to pick Alfred University as an alternative. And maybe, my dream school is Geneseo as an example. So let's see, Jen. Okay, so there's the 3 schools that I pick. And you'll notice that it lists here that the affordability side is of danger of our guidelines. What we said was the first year pre-approval cost. And so the estimated first year net cost is in this range. So what is it that we're looking at here? The total cost that we're estimating is tuition, room and board, fees, and books. So it's all of those different aspects of things. Now, you can click on any of these to see if there's any, we can click on any of these and see, well, what's the GPA required for this? What's the SAT score? What's enrollment? What percentage is admitted? How many students have needs met with grants? At what percentage? What is the cost of attendance projected into 2022? Remember, that's the year. Now, what if the SAT scores were higher, the GPA scores were higher? What if they qualify for any of these particular various programs? So we said that this was for STEM majors only, which is, as you know, science, technology, math, those kinds of areas that we're looking at. If you were interested in that, then you might click that box and it's possible with this particular student anyway, that they would qualify. You can also see the Excellence in Education Scholarship is about $20,000. So let's just click that box so that we can see what it would look like in that particular situation. Or even the Presidential Scholarship would be an option, potentially both, I suppose. But let's just leave it at the one, just so you could see what it looks like. So if we go ahead and close that, now you can see in that situation, if we hit next, we haven't actually filled out any applications, but we could if we wanted to. Okay, now we're getting the how to pay. Now remember, with Alfred State College, we had a scholarship thrown in there, right? So we were looking at what it would cost in 2023 and all of the different years based on our need. And this also goes into, let me just go back to, let's say that we wanted to look at Alfred, that was Alfred that we already looked at, so sorry. Let's say we also wanted to look at Geneseo, and we wanted to say that if we could get tuition, or if we could get SAT scores up, then perhaps they might actually qualify. So what are those merit scholarships? Takes you right to the Geneseo website, and we can see what some of those scholarships might be and when the deadlines are, which are very, very, very helpful, right? So that's pretty important. And then we would be able to sort of do that side-by-side analysis that I was just getting you to. So okay, so this is the total loans for Alfred University. Let me go to Alfred State because this was the one that I selected the scholarship. Now you can see in this particular situation, because Bob got the scholarship, you'll see that he actually has a zero funding gap. So even though in this case, we said that we have to shoot for something around that $15,000 mark in the first year, because of the SAT and the GPA that Bob had, we were able to find a scholarship that he would qualify for that actually shows he wouldn't even need to take the loan if he didn't want to, which is the ideal situation in his case, right? So then we can actually we can actually run a report that shows each of the schools side by side so that you can see what the funding gaps are. So for example, we had the pre-approval amount, as we already mentioned, $15,525. The funding gap in this situation is $12,541 in the first year. You'd be able to get a student loan for $5,500, but that leaves the remaining gap of around $7,000, or a total of about $20,000. Now, this is where you can have a conversation about whether or not, do the parents want to fund it? Do the student want to fund it? Do we want to go get additional scholarships? But this is the importance of going through the pre-approval process in advance. The student isn't walking out of college with $20,000 in private loans plus another $27,000 in federal loans. They can choose to do that, but they would know that they had an option at this other college that they could walk out of college completely debt-free. Both SUNY schools, both competing for their dollars, especially with good grades like Bob had at 3.9. This is really critical in the college planning process. And if Bob knows that in 9th grade or 10th grade and has an opportunity to retake SATs if they're just borderline or get the GPA up, then this is the ideal situation for the family. Bob goes off, he gets a 4-year degree, he walks out of school debt-free. That allows him the freedom to pick a job that he really wants. It gives him some time to explore, especially if he keeps his grades up. This is our pre-approval process. This is the process that we go through with any client that is looking to do college planning. We hope that you found this very helpful. And if you're interested in doing some college planning with us, please feel free to contact us. We would love to sit with you and your children to talk to them about college planning, pre-approval process, ways that we can discover scholarships. It is our joy and pleasure to really prevent and slow down this crisis of significant student loans that kids are walking out of college with, or students are walking out of college with today. Thank you so much. You will find our contact information on the very next slide, and we hope that you enjoyed this presentation today.